and gentlemen, I'm highly honored to present the next speaker for the day. Mr. Kamran Arif is a lawyer. He has held senior administrative positions with a number of leading human rights and non-governmental organizations. He is currently the co-chair of Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kamran Arif.
Thank you very much. I will begin by expressing my gratitude to the Oxford University Pakistan Foundation, in particular Mr. Faraz Janan Khatak, for inviting me to speak to such a accomplished audience. I will be basically talking a little bit about what I know something about, that is the human rights situation in Pakistan. But the question before me is quite considerable. What do you say to aspiring and young professionals who want to work for Pakistan? Well, if I have to give you one sentence, my advice in one sentence, that would be that there are quite a few opportunities for working in Pakistan, and there are considerably more challenges facing you if you decide to work on issues in Pakistan, issues relating to law, issues relating to human rights. But rather than put you off, this will make your effort more worthwhile. And there are quite a few examples. I am speaking to you in a year when Malala Yousafzai was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Those of us who know about the story know of what conditions there were, what led the committee to award the Nobel Award to technically a schoolgirl. And also, if you look at the opinion inside Pakistan on the award of the Nobel Award to Malala, you will understand the contradictions within us. The country, I will agree with the Professor Saab who just spoke before me. We are pulling at the same time in two very different directions. And it is for people like you to make the difference, people who can bring their ideas and their efforts to make a real change. To start on a positive note, yes, all is not negative about Pakistan. We've had some big changes recently, or rather not very recently, considering I'm speaking to a very young audience. In 2008, we had a return to democracy. The first civilian government completed its term. In 2010 was quite a momentous year for human rights. The 18th Amendment brought in 3 new constitutionally guaranteed fundamental rights: the right to education, the right to information, and more importantly, the right to fair trial. Pakistan ratified the International Convention Against Torture and the Convention on Civil and Political Rights. But then at the same time, we brought in quite a few regressive measures, the laws that all but took away the right to fair trial. There are many experts here. Pakistan, of course, has been experiencing some troubles, insurgencies in parts of the country, and to counter that, some of the laws enacted take away quite a lot that has been given by the developments and the laws that we brought in after 2010. There are several reasons for why there is a negative image of Pakistan. One of the reasons, of course, is that even after the passage of almost 60 years since independence, we are still struggling with our governance setup, with bringing democracy into the country. Our rurals, whoever they are, whether military or with even democratic, they are always very fearful of giving rights to the people. These fears are usually expressed in existential terms. And so quite a lot of the actions and the legislations are basically preventing people from attaining those rights. And that's where the human rights activists, young aspiring lawyers and political activists that you aspire to be can make a big difference there. And just to highlight that, I will just talk about 2 or 3 problems. But before that, I will also like a little bit about something that change can be brought in Pakistan. And a case in point is not long ago we had a lawyers' movement. When President Musharraf tried to bring in his second coup, a coup against his own government, and dismissed the Prime Minister, dismissed the Chief Justice of Pakistan. Basically, the lawyers' movement was for restoration of the Chief Justice on one point of principle, if that can be, it can be so stated or translated, that it is not the executive that give directions to the judiciary, but it is the judiciary that can give direction to the executive, and that is how a constitutional run democracy basically runs. It was the young lawyers who initially started that movement. Oh, of course, all the senior lawyers, and some of them were already there, but that was a change that was brought upon mainly by young lawyers. Now, coming to some of the real issues that we have, and quite a few of those are related to the problem that Pakistan has in fact been experiencing, some that Pakistan has no control over, and some that Pakistan has, if not created, Pakistan has played quite a big hand in complicating issues. When we look at the human rights landscape, or if we read reports about human rights, and I'm making no comparison to India or to Afghanistan, these are different countries, the context might be different, but we see some very, very troubling trends. If we look at the marginalized communities, we see quite a lot of problems, particularly when it comes to religious minorities. We have all heard of the Shia targeted killings, of what is happening to the Hazara community in Quetta, and what the government response has been. There has been no justice so far. I will be talking about that in a different context later. And the other issue is, of course, the long-standing issue that we have of the persecution of the Ahmadiyya community, the blasphemy laws that are continuously being misused. Then there is quite a lot of discrimination against women. We hear of cases that are quite severe, including acid killings. Not that they don't happen in any other country, but our justice system has failed to a large extent to address those issues. There are problems with enforcing the rights of children. We have now new problems as well. Children's schools are being blown up by various terrorist groups, and also there's an issue of child labor, which has been going on for quite a while. Bonded labor is also a concern in parts of Pakistan. There are, as I said earlier, a couple of insurgencies going on, troubles, if I may call them, in the federally administered tribal areas and also in parts of Balochistan. The way it is being tackled by the government, the laws and the administrative measures do not fare well for within both the constitutional as well as the human rights framework. Access to justice remains a very big issue. One of the biggest issues that we are facing, and which we have failed to address, is the issue of torture. The criminal justice system in Pakistan relies very, very heavily on torture, and as a result, Pakistan, the police in Pakistan, the law enforcing agencies, have not developed the capacity or the skills to undertake scientific investigation of criminal cases. So torture might work well with marginalized communities, against marginalized or individual groups, but when torture is used as a means of investigation for serious cases like in sectarian cases or terrorism cases, it completely fails, because it's useless torturing a hardened criminal or a hardened terrorist. Have an answer for some of our most pressing issues. Then there are other failings of the criminal justice system, including the use of death penalty, although there is an unofficial moratorium on the use of death penalty. Pakistan has at the moment more than 8,000 people on the death row. 20,000 is the known death row population of the world. So 1/3 of the death row prisoners in the world are in Pakistan. And that is something that we have to come to terms with, and it's something directly related to the issue of criminal justice. Then there are general access to justice issues, and I think those of us who are working on rights, those of us who are working on legal issues, or becoming lawyers, or are freshly become lawyers, that is something that would be most worrying. Quite a large section of Pakistan's population have no access to the justice system, because Pakistan has no organized legal aid mechanisms. So the courts are there are quite a few courts. The courts also have quite a lot of problem with delays and with the congestion within the court system. But quite a large population of the country are unable either to access a lawyer due to various constraints, like women in the rural areas. It is almost impossible for them to cross the cultural barriers and seek advice on even simple issues like claiming their inheritance, which the law, which Islam gives them, a right that is given to them by both the religion and the laws of the country, and also family matters. And that is something that means that the law in Pakistan does not work for everyone. It only works for people who are either privileged or who have considerable resources. And this is a very, very big hurdle in attaining both the human rights and sort of providing justice at a large scale for a lot of people, or I should say the vast majority of the people. And where do these vast majority of people end up? They end up before informal tribunals, which go by various names, including panchayat and a jirga. And these tribunals or institutions, or whatever you might call them, have two things in common. Firstly, they do not rely on evidence. They rely on hearsay evidence. And secondly, they do not enforce the laws of Pakistan. So the protection given by laws of Pakistan is not available to those people. These institutions enforce either a very regressive interpretation of the Islamic law or their own interpretations of culture. And that basically means that the laws that have been framed through a proper constitutional process are useless for quite a large number of people whose cases end up before these informal institutions and not before the courts of law. My last point would be about special areas. Pakistan still has, and I think there was a session about that, special areas where the laws of Pakistan do not apply in toto. And I'm talking about 2 or 3 areas. The most important of those would be the federally administered tribal areas, which paradoxically they do elect representatives to the National Assembly of Pakistan. Their MNAs come into the National Assembly and they legislate for the rest of the country, but not for FATA. FATA is still governed by the infamous FCR, which concentrates all administrative, legislative, and judicial powers in one civil servant, medium level bureaucrat called the political agent. And there are quite a few issues with those laws. To highlight that, I will just give you one example, and that basically illustrates what people go through. It was quite a few years ago, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, that I went to the lockup of the political agent Khyber agency. So I was there to sort of look at one of the journalists who was being detained there. And so the word came out that a legal aid lawyer is in the vicinity. So one very old man came to see me. He wanted to see me, so I sort of took him to a side, and I said, what is the problem? So he was accused of murder. He was quite a fairly old, he was fairly old man, maybe 70 years old. And at that age, he had taken a young wife. And so he had suspicions that she was seeing a much younger man. One day while walking in the bazaar, he saw the young gentleman. And so he pulled out his gun and killed him. Then he went home so that he could kill his wife. And if he had managed to kill his wife, then it would have been no offense, because that was the customary law. If the man and the woman is killed, even if though they're in separate places, then that would not be an offense. But since he was an old man, he took his time reaching home. The news reached before him, and his wife left the house. So he couldn't kill her. So eventually he was arrested. He was arrested for murdering the man. And so he claimed before the assistant political agent that he should be released on bail, and if he could kill his wife, he would be released. The case would end. Whatever the reasons prevailed with the assistant political agent, but he was acquitted. He was granted bail. But he still did not manage to kill his wife. And so he was rearrested. And so for the second time that he was arrested, it is not clear whether he was arrested for murdering the young man, or for not being able to murder his wife. And so then he was asking me if I could get him out on bail. He would kill his wife and the case would end. And I said this is one case that the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan would not like to take up in legal aid. And so the point I was making is that there are challenges. Just because we have laws doesn't mean that the laws are being properly applied. It is for the people who bring these ideas, who are people who make the difference. It is laws that can be both used and laws that can both be misused. And we have quite a few of those. There are examples, quite a few of the cases that have been brought under the blasphemy laws. They have been for reasons other than blasphemy. The list goes on. And so the issue and the point that I was trying to make is that we have a very long struggle ahead of us if we have to ensure that everyone has access to justice, to the rights that the Constitution grants to the people of the country, and if we have to make human rights a reality for the people of Pakistan. It would be for young leaders like you, be they lawyers, be they sociologists, and social sciences for me are very important, because when we plan advocacy, like we are planning something against the death penalty or against police torture, and maybe some of the experts present in the room will agree with me, we have absolutely no data, we have absolutely no academic material on which to build these campaigns or to work on these issues. And so it is for all of us, particularly those of us who have had the good fortune of having a privileged education, that we play our bit, and so that we can make justice and human rights a reality for the people of Pakistan. Thank you very much.